Sisters, welcome to our Friday night live here at the center. Drop some fire in the chat if you are here with us on this evening. We are super excited that you are tuning in for our back to school edition. We are talking tonight with our four panelists on navigating this new school year. So let's get started. I'm going to exit stage left, and I'm going to allow our panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves. If you have questions, please make sure that you drop it in the chat. We want to make sure we meet your needs on this evening. So please make sure that you drop your comments as well as your questions in the chat. So let's get started. Dr. Draper, it's on you.
Well, good evening, sisters. My name is Dr. Angela Draper, and I am a principal supervisor for Guilford County Schools, basically elementary schools.
Good evening, sisters. The Sister Circle, Pastor Michael McNair and Lady Leah McNair. Honored to be here. My name is Dr. Michelle Johnson, and I am co-founder and superintendent of the Point College Preparatory and Leadership Academy, a charter school serving the greater Triad. So excited to be here tonight.
Good evening, sisters. My name is Tarsha Williams, and I am an EC facilitator for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. And my role is to support teachers who work with students with disabilities.
Good evening, sisters. Very excited to be here tonight. My name is Kendra Wiggins. I am a school counselor at New Hope Elementary School in Hillsborough, and I also work as a licensed clinical mental health therapist.
Awesome, and we're so excited to have our panelists here. So let's get started, ladies. So our first question for this evening: what do you believe is the biggest challenge in education right now? At this moment, what is the biggest challenge?
I would say the teacher shortage. It is a national challenge at this very moment. I don't think my mic is working. I hope you can hear me. But I was saying that the teacher shortage is the challenging thing at this very moment with education. It's a national situation, and we're still looking for children to help serve your babies.
I would piggyback on that and just say, along with teacher shortage, a lot of teachers who have been in the game for a long time, I've noticed have started to experience burnout. I saw a ton of teachers retire last year just from my school. It was at least 4 or 5, which is a lot. And so burnout is a very real thing. I mean, they had to deal with a lot of things. We had to deal with a lot of things in education last year. So just burnout of all the changes, and one day is this, the next day is that. So just navigating all those things, and burnout is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we're facing for educators who are still currently in the education system.
I would also agree with all of that, and also the pipeline for new educators, trying to get more students in the education programs, which helps us fill the teacher shortage. So if you're interested in being an educator, you should probably go ahead and talk to somebody on this stage, and we can help you find a program, okay? Okay.
Absolutely. We are accepting resumes at this very moment. So you can email, you can text, whatever you need to do. But in addition to teacher shortage and burnout and the pipeline, I would say we just need to have a national conversation about how do we move forward in education and with families, right? Because the expectation that many families have is that now that COVID is not as bad as it was, it's still here, but it's not as bad as it was, that school is going to go back to how it was prior to COVID. And that's just not the case. So we really have to manage expectations. What is school really going to be like? Is my child going to have a highly qualified teacher? Is that teacher going to be there the entire school year? Is, what's going to happen? Or are classes going to have to be combined so that there are more students in a class because there aren't as many educators? we really have to have those conversations with parents and not just assume, we can't just assume that when school opens in August that it's going to go back to how it was pre-COVID, and that's not the case.
Ooh, y'all started off heavy. Wow. And so, piggybacking off of what you all just made mention of, you have states now that are deciding that, hey, you don't have to have a degree to come teach. You don't have to, well, we already know you don't necessarily have to be licensed if you come in lateral entry. But thoughts on not having to have a degree to teach our babies?
So that's a hard one. I prefer that, of course, that you have the proper training, because pedagogy is pedagogy. It's just like saying, I want you to perform heart surgery on me, but she's never taken a medical course a day in her life, but I'm in desperate need of a heart transplant, and they just hand her a scalpel and say, go for it, right? So it's the same thing. It's about valuing the profession and honoring what it is and valuing what we have to offer. Yes, everybody can be coached, but just because you can read doesn't mean you can teach reading either. So it's a process, and it does make it harder for the educational system to support people who are not trained to be educators. And I think there's this false narrative out there that anyone can teach. If anyone can do it. I came into the profession as a lateral entry, what we call it here, lateral entry, but it was required in Tennessee that you also be in a preparation program at the time. So it wasn't just go and teach, but you had to get a license while you were teaching, and you were under strict supervision at that time. So not to discourage anybody to not pursue this if they do not have a degree, but they should also know that you're coming in behind the 8 ball. And so you need some preparation, because what's being asked of you to do to provide quality instruction, the parents don't know that you don't know. And so when they're asking for something, or they expect you to know or be able to deliver on something, they are already under the assumption that you are trained and that you are qualified to teach their children.
And so that's why we have to have a real conversation in this country about teachers, about the pipeline, about the shortage, about who's in front of our children, about what really is school for, right? Is school a babysitting service? Because we know now, and that because of COVID, we know now that if you close schools down, that's a problem with the economy, right? It's not necessarily, people aren't saying it's about Johnny reading, but it's a problem because parents can't go to work. Somebody has to take care of the children, and the country's going to do what it has to do to keep the economy going. So if that means they're going to lax the requirements, if that means they're going to say just get somebody in that classroom, get an adult in that classroom, that's what they're going to do. Because in all honesty, real education, has taken a back seat to the economy, to money, to big testing, houses and all of those things. And the children, and really what the children need, is not being put first.
I would just piggyback on that and say, I like the comment you made about having respect for the profession. I started lateral entry too, and I know when I went in the classroom without the educational preparation before, and I did have to take courses, but going there, it was tough. It was really, really difficult not having that background and that prior knowledge about how to, manage a classroom and actually teach students information that they needed to know. So when you start talking about offering jobs as an educator without having a degree, it kind of becomes less of a career and more of a job. And then so when you're looking at it from that standpoint, the respect for the position, if I don't want to come today, maybe I'll just quit. You don't really have the longevity anymore. So, and that does a disservice to the children that we're we're charged to educate.
I would just say it makes me very, very nervous to think that that's on the table. Because for those persons who decide to go that avenue, it's like you're going in the classroom and you're trying to learn on the job, which makes it very, very even more harder to become equipped to teach children. So I just think it just makes me very nervous even to have to consider that that's on consideration.
And the sisters cannot agree with you even more. They are blowing up the chat, saying yes, 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 yes. Honest education has taken a backseat to the economy. They are blowing up the chat, y'all. They're very, very, and they're in high agreement with what you all are saying. And so, what trends have you all seen over the last 5 years, and what do you predict is to come in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think because of COVID and the impact that it has had on education, more virtual learning. You have the virtual schools that are opening. We have some kids that will probably never come back to the classroom. So we have to become, as educators, we have to become more equipped to meet the needs of those students too. And also just more, I think, for learning, being more project-based learning for kids instead of, I think long gone are the days when we just put a worksheet in front of a student and say, here, do this. Because of the times that we're living in, we teachers have to think outside the box as far as how they're going to provide instruction and what that looks like to meet the needs of our diverse learners.
I really see it becoming a privatized business. Unfortunately, it is going to go that way because everyone will not be able to afford it. And this is sort of kind of a political stance that some people are actually leaning towards, is the privatization of education. And I like specialization. I love having unique opportunities for people to be able to choose. I love the choice option. But you're also seeing a lot of educators leave the classroom and start businesses. Nothing wrong with that. Don't shoot me, don't come for me, because I have one myself. However, what's happening is that talent is coming away from the classroom, and then they're creating micro schools and tutoring programs, and it's going to be cost more to have access to high quality trained teachers. And that's where, again, the pipeline is going to become very important, that we start filling that with teachers who are able and capable of teaching in a classroom. Now, will it happen in the next 5 years? No, there will not be a teacher drought. I think we're starting to feel it, that we need to, we're going to have to fill that plate with something. But I just see it more becoming personalized, a profitable thing, not necessarily always public, but there will be more choices.
Thank you. And so, as actually all of you here are parents, do you remember a specific experience where you wish your child's school had done something differently? And can you share the experience?
Well, I'll say, because my children go to my school, and I don't think that, just from the perspective of just being an educator and a parent and my children attending my school, I don't expect the school to be everything for my child. I don't expect the school to educate and to give my child all of the education that my child needs. My child is there. My children are there from 7:30 until 3. Some of that time they are learning in their elective courses, or they're at lunch, or they're at breakfast, or they're transitioning. And so instructional time is whittled down to a few hours a day. And everything that my child needs cannot be given to them in that amount of time. So it is partly my responsibility So when I think about schools and what they can do differently, everyone can improve, all schools can improve, parents can improve, I can improve, I can do things differently, right? When I don't always read everything that's in my child's book bag and they come home, right? And I forget to do something or help them with their project at the last minute, right? So everyone can improve in some manner. And I don't put the onus, all of it, on a school, and I don't look at it in that way. Yes, we can get better when we do things, but I also am a fierce advocate of educators. Educators are severely underpaid. Educators are responsible for sometimes 30 children at once. Educators, I've said it on this platform before, when you calculate how much the state pays for per pupil for a child to be educated, it comes out to about $6.71 an hour, and my child is worth so much more than that. So I really can't ask. You can ask the school to do something differently. You can ask them to do more, but to tell you the truth, in this day and time, teachers are drained, are spent. Principals are spent. Everyone is at their wits' end, and they love children. They love the school. They love educating. But we cannot continue to ask them to do better, do better, do better, do more, do more, do more. And when North Carolina teachers are barely paid a living wage, teachers are working multiple jobs to take care of their families. It's just horrendous. So I wouldn't dare do that. Even though my children attend a school, I don't do that to their teachers. I just don't do that, because I know, being in it, I know what they make. I know what they give me to pay them. And I know it's not enough, because I know how hard they work.
So, yes, she's passionate because she's like saying everything I want to say, and I love it. I'm here for it. One of the things that I want the sisters to remember is that when you have an issue and you come to a building, remember that your one is one of 30, and think as if you're talking to one of your sister circle sisters, because you don't know who is actually in that space. And this is the God part coming out. So when we start talking about who we are and how we show up in these spaces, I interact with parents all the time when I was a principal and in this role, and you have to have that compassion, because like she said, there's a lot going on, and while you're focusing on your one, that person is also focusing on everybody else in the room too. And there will be things that they miss. They do not have eyes in the back of their heads. But come in with the expectation of, yes, you may have a concern, but it's not, and I'm going to say, don't try to pop off. That's the best way I can say it. When you're confronted, because yelling doesn't get you the response that you want. I'm a mom, like we all are, and I'm in the triad, and I'm on the Book of Faces, and there's a group that addresses these group of people. And last year I had the privilege of just watching a thread about an interaction a parent was having at a school. And unfortunately, I actually knew about the situation because of my role. And unfortunately, people were gaslighting and getting them hyped up and not really understanding everything that was happening in that building. And when you only have one side or one perspective, and please, yes, believe your children, but also believe the adult. And I think the one thing that hurts most educators is when they're called a liar, or they're not telling the truth, or you're just protecting your people. Everybody's here to protect the children. Everybody wants things to go well. Nobody wants to work in an environment where they feel like they are constantly under scrutiny, or that if they make a mistake, that's the end of their career. We are the most highly watched profession on a daily basis, and teachers are held on a pedestal to where they cannot make a mistake. And we have to realize that she's a mom, I'm a mom, you don't know what we've been dealing with all day, and you're coming, and we don't know what you've coming with it all day. So it's a two-way street. As administrators and as teachers, we have to respect you as a parent, but also as a parent coming in, respect what's happening in the building and the classrooms, and know that nobody is out to get your child or do your child wrong. And a mistake may happen, and let's try to find the best way to work through that. But when that happens, it's just the best way to treat it as if you were talking to one of your sister circle sisters. Because you wouldn't come in here if a sister made a mistake and having that behavior. Not saying that you guys would, but just bring it with more honey than vinegar.
I would add to that. So when you asked that question about a specific incident, and I can't think of anything that was too major, but there was one teacher that my child had. And sometimes there are just some who just, may not get along well with your child, or just they don't mesh well. And that happens. That's okay. So they had an interaction, and my son felt like she, said something she shouldn't have said to him. He thought she was racist. So she made a comment about, this was like at the height of, I think, the Mike Brown situation. And she made a comment, I know it's difficult for African-American boys in this country right now, but you need to know how to behave, something to that effect. And it was a white teacher. So he attends a predominantly white school, and there's a lot of, conversation around race at his school in general. So my role as a parent was to first have a conversation with him, and just talk that out with him, make sure he felt okay, assure him, validate him, affirm him. And like you said, then the conversation I have with the teacher is going to be for me to seek to understand first before just totally, going by what my child said. So I had a conversation with the teacher. It was not a malicious statement that she made, but just approaching any situation where you're dealing with teachers at your child's school, administrators, because they're taking care of your child, most of the day anyway. So you want to have an open communication. You want to have a solid, positive relationship with them. And so, advocate for your child, absolutely, but do it in a way where you're not leaving, malicious feelings or, any kind of just negativity between you and that teacher, because you need to have the trifecta is you, your child, and that teacher throughout the entire school year. So just seek to understand first and not to be understood. And that's my counselor side coming out.
Yes, and one of the sisters said in the chat, pray before you go. So, amen. And so what have you all noticed about the mental and emotional health of students, especially within the last 2 years? And what advice or support can what support can parents give to their children as far as it concerns their emotional and mental well-being?
So I'll start this question off. As a counselor, we were inundated. I mean, every single day. And I moved to elementary school thinking it would be a little bit easier. It was not. So what I've noticed, a lot of children, elementary, middle school, high school, most of the two things that they come to my office for is anxiety and depression. So, and I mean babies, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, getting headaches, throwing up in class, not wanting to come to school because of anxiety. And so there's real fear around like COVID, for sure, coming back to school, not having that socialization for 2 years, a year and a half, whatever the case was. And they're just overall nervous and anxious. That's one of the biggest issues that I've seen with students. So as a parent, two of the greatest things you can do, and this is Sister Circle. So when you send your children out, make sure you are covering them in prayer, first and foremost, giving them some affirmation, some word, instilling them, like I tell my son, you can do all things through Christ. So we'll say a scripture in the morning, or we'll say some kind of affirmation to help him build his self-esteem and have a positive mindset before starting his day. And then also, and this is one of the most important things too, make sure your child feels love from you before they go into that building. There's so many days kids come out of the car line crying, and just it sets them up for a total disaster of a day because they've had, a parent fussing at them in the car line, or a parent is just frustrated about their day or whatever's going on at home, and children taking everything. They notice everything. They can tell when you're mad about something, and they sponge in all of that information emotionally, academically. They take it all in. And so as a parent, just affirming them before they leave your sight, I love you. You're going to have a great day. Giving them a positive mindset before they start their day is one of the greatest ways you can prepare them to have a successful day, and if you do it consistently, a successful year.
And I would just say that in our district, we have our social emotional learning, that because we recognize too that students are coming with this anxiety about school and depression and those things like that. So we have a whole curriculum that has been developed to address those social emotional and those mental struggles that students are having.
And so as we transition, and I'm looking at the comments, they are so in love with you all. Even the educators are like, woo woo. So just thank y'all. Thank you for your honesty and transparency. And so for students who are struggling academically due to medical, physical, psychological, and all these different issues that have been arising, what supports are in place for such students? I know we have things such as MTSS, 504s, IEPs. What do parents need to know as far as how they can, what resources are available to help their child academically?
Okay, I'll start. I would just say if you know that your child is struggling academically, or if they have some type of medical condition that they need resources or support to assist them with being successful in the school environment, just first having a conversation with the teacher to address, have you seen this? Have you noticed this with Johnny or with Anna or what have you, just to see if you, to affirm or confirm what your suspicions are, and then ask, okay, what avenues do you have to help support my child in that area? You've already mentioned IEPs, which excuse me, address my area of expertise, and so there is a process that students can go through to see if they qualify for special education services that will allow them to get that support that they need to help them be successful in school. And then we also have 504, which also addresses needs of students. Sometimes students need accommodations, and when I say accommodations, I'm talking about maybe when it comes to testing, they need a quiet place away from the classroom to test, or they need that extended time just to process through questions on assessments. So those things can be put in place to help students, but you have to seek out your teacher, your school, and just ask those questions so that you can get a better understanding of how or what avenue or which way you need to go to help with supporting your child.
And also remember that process is not an overnight process.
Right.
It does take time. There are timelines that are associated with that when going through that, and all students don't always qualify. And so it's a team effort, which means you're included in that, and that you have to participate in a level to help make that best decision for your student. And if they don't qualify, there are other things that can be done. And they might not necessarily be in the classroom. Sometimes some schools offer after-school programs that do tutoring. I know at the middle and the high school level, they have learning hubs in Guilford County. There's other resources available to you. They might not always be free, but we can always recommend good resources in places where you can get the additional support. And also, manage sort of kind of your expectation. If you have an older child who's been through elementary, I'm going to use elementary as an example. If you have a child who's in middle school, maybe 8th grade, and you're comparing them to your second grader this year, and you say, well, my child knew these things in 2nd grade when they were in 2nd grade. Well, that child didn't have COVID when they were in kindergarten. So understand that we're playing catch up in this educational process. And so we can accelerate that learning as best we can, but we've had 2 years of disruption. And so, in trying to make sure that we connect with students and get them to that level. So don't do your child a disservice by comparing one child to another. I've seen that a lot in families, and the younger child has the anxiety because they're not reaching the same level as their older brother or sister. So keep that in mind when trying to determine that need and talking to the teacher.
And I would just piggyback off of that because my issue with my sister and I, the comparison came from the teachers. And so the teachers are expecting my sister to do take the same path as I did because, of course, I was the oldest of the two. So teachers, please, please don't compare siblings. You cause the younger ones to have some resentment, especially towards the older one. Anyhow, and so the next question, if parents is not in agreement or they're not satisfied with the curriculum being taught, the instructional style of their child's teacher, or the school culture overall, how do they go about voicing their concerns and advocating for their child? Who should they be speaking to, such as a chain of command? So if I'm not satisfied as a parent, how do I go about advocating for my child, and who do I need to talk to? Because I'm highly upset, and I'm going straight to the superintendent.
That happens. That happens. Well, I will begin by saying that I am a fierce advocate of choice. I'm a fierce advocate of school choice, of parental choice, of parent empowerment, of knowing your options, of doing what is best for you and your family and your children. One size does not fit all. One school may not fit all of your children. So you may have, 3 children, and one school works best for one child and another school works best for another child. So if at all possible, if you have the means at all, I implore you to explore your options for what works best for you and your family. I'm in a different situation because our school is a school of choice, and so every child who comes there, a parent has chosen to bring their child to us. So they have researched it, they have visited, they may have talked to other parents, they have gotten word of mouth. They vote or they voice their concerns with their feet. If they want to be there, they stay. If they don't, they choose something else. That doesn't mean they can't, bring up concerns or anything like that. But in terms of those big issue things that you were bringing up, like curriculum, one parent can't change a curriculum, right? We see a lot of stuff happening in this country in terms of parents protesting books and things that are taught. You just gotta find, and every parent has a right to protest what's taught and not taught. That's their right to do that. But find the school that's gonna teach what you want them to teach. And if they're not gonna teach what you want them to teach, there's this thing called homeschool. So that's an option as well. Just saying, that's an option because you can't. You got to trust the educators. You got to trust the educators. They're not schools out here. The majority of schools, I don't know all of them, but the majority of schools out here or in our region are not teaching crazy stuff. So, you just find the school that's going to meet your needs in terms of your curriculum. And then in terms of the culture of the school, again, it's a culture isn't changed or mitigated by one person. A culture is built over time. So if your child is in a school or in a neighborhood school, maybe it's the school you went to and now your child's going to it and it wasn't like it was when you were there and those things. That's a community issue. So I encourage parents to work together in parent groups, in not that kind of group you were talking about, but in a parent group that is supportive and encouraging. How can we help build the culture of the school. Like some dads in another state went and volunteered in the school to help with the culture because they were experiencing some things after or during COVID. That's how you have an impact in a positive way. You can't just go into a big school or a system, you got 1,700 kids, and try to overturn things. You work together with the community to try to build it for the better of all children and not just yours, because it's not just about your one child.
And I guess I'm the only other district level person, so I'm going to talk on the public school side when you're trying to voice. Number one, start with the teacher. Because sometimes if your concern necessarily doesn't have to do with the whole school or the whole system. It might be a misunderstanding in communication between you and the teacher. So I would always say start with the teacher if that's the issue. If the issue is at the school level, start with the principal and give them an opportunity to respond. I'm a huge advocate for PTAs because that's an organized way for parents to get together and have a voice and meet and support the school and support cultures. It might be a PTO or a booster club or whatever the school decides to call it, but those are also a great place to work with schools to support them and to help make the changes that you might possibly want to see. If the issue isn't resolved at the school level, in Guilford County Schools, you would basically call me next, the supervisor for that school. So I have 12 elementary schools, and that would come to me. And hopefully, I will be able to resolve your problem. And if not, then it usually goes to my boss, and who is the chief of schools, and then after that, it would go to the superintendent. But if you see, that's a lot of people before you go to the top. Because what winds up happening, and this is where parents get frustrated, is that if you go straight to the top, it gets pushed all the way back down. And you're wondering why that happened. And it's because the person at the top is not in that building, and they do not know the ins and out of every single school building, every single classroom, and they can't answer for that. But what they can do is get the person who is closest to that situation to support and help you understand what's going on. So there is a process, and sometimes it does take a minute. I will definitely say in my level, and when it gets to my level, it takes about 48 hours for us to get back to you unless it's a like extreme emergency, like the building's burning down. But we have multiple schools, and so if you think about your one question, I'm getting it from 12 different schools, and there might be multiple people. But most of the time, we're able to do it within 24 hours. So be patient, wait for the phone call, or if you send an email response will come. We are very responsive. I'm just speaking for Guilford County Schools. Very responsive to our parents. So I would just say start with the school, because even if it's something that it comes to me and I know it has absolutely nothing to do within my realm, I definitely will send it back to the school, because I will need the principal to address that, and the principal and the teacher to address it. And if it doesn't come into fruition, or there's an issue, I will talk with that principal just to make sure that they have the resources they need to answer your question or the support that they need. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to come directly from me. So I would say take your time, go through the chain, because you don't want to have to get pushed back down. And again, form parent organizations that support your school, be a part, volunteer in the building, and that's how those type of changes are made.
So we have several questions in the chat from our beautiful sisters. So the first one states, how important is the ACT and SAT scores for rising seniors planning to attend college?
So while I work in elementary, I don't necessarily do high school, but I have worked in a high school before. So, I mean, if I'm very honest, I can't totally say if I know for sure to answer that question, because since COVID, that has changed a little bit. I know the year of COVID, they didn't even require them to take the SAT or the ACT. And then you talk about learning loss for the kids who, didn't come to school that year. So that's a great question. And I would tell you as a parent to go to your school counselor at your child's high school and ask that question, because they should have a more succinct answer for you, but definitely talk to your child's counselor and make sure your child knows who their counselor is in high school. A lot of times kids get, kind of under the radar because they're not necessarily in affiliation with the person who can help them with those college questions, because there's a lot of kids and most times maybe 4 counselors per high school. So make sure your child knows their school counselor, talks to them, and gets those questions answered.
And I will also say with that, I do know that they did, that's why I was looking at you about the COVID question, because that did change, and I knew that had changed. But I also knew that I had a friend whose child, they said yes, the ACT was waived, but when they went for their major to apply to their major, their ACT and SAT did count. So that's an extra little layer that we probably wouldn't even know about until we had a child that actually went into the university. So like she said, talk to your counselor, because every school is different, and while North Carolina system may not require it right now, their majors within the university might.
So I will add that if you are in a public school in North Carolina, you are required to take the ACT. And the state is, the minimum score that the state wants you to have is a 19 composite. So you should know that your child is shooting for a 19 composite on the ACT, and that is required. So your scholar has to take that in a public school in North Carolina. Your scholar does not have to take the SAT, but research the college with your scholar, the college and university you want your scholar to attend. Research that together and see what is the university's requirement for the upcoming school year. Now, because your scholar already has to take the ACT, and your scholar has goals, if you're asking this question, your scholar has goals, you have plans and dreams for your scholar, and your scholar will probably do better if he or she takes it 2 times. So take it the 1 time, it's paid for by the school, and then take it again. Study, get your report back, study the sections that you didn't do that well on, and take it again. Our school, I know other schools offer ACT prep classes and different things that can be taken. My philosophy is if my child or your child has to take something, has to take a test, they should do their best. They should do their best, and because when you do your best and what you put out, you get back. So do your best. If you don't like that score, study, take it again, research the universities where you want to attend, see if they are requiring it. If not, it still helps. It may not be required to get into the university, but it may be required to get into the honors program, right? So it may be required to get the scholarship. So do your best, take the test, and you never know where that will take you.
And guess what, sisters? We got you covered. We have a class on next month on the ACT, SAT, ASVAB, and the AccuPlacer. So we got you covered. Don't even worry about it. We'll take care of you. And so our next question was from one of our other sisters. She said, how do you all support educators?
Professionally or personally?
I'm assuming both.
Well, my role is to support teachers. I'm in the schools. I have 3 schools this year that I support. And my role is, like I said before, I work with teachers who work with students with disabilities. So I'm always in the classrooms, providing support with the teachers with any concerns that they may have, whether it's with an IEP, paperwork compliance, making sure that their IEP is in correct order, anything that the teacher needs. That's how I support teachers on a daily basis, because that's just my role and the expectations of my job role.
As a counselor, I support teachers pretty much in any way that I can, honestly. If they need a listening ear and my door is open, they can come in and talk. If it's with a parent, they want me to come in for a conference, or they're having issues with a student, I'll come in and support them. any way that I can. And I'll add, as a parent, I have two boys, one who just started high school, one who's going into kindergarten. And as a parent, I support students, one, by making sure my children are prepared when they go to school and go to class, and then also just being in communication with them and making sure, they know that I'm there if they need something. Teacher Appreciation Week comes, I get all the gifts, but just making sure they understand that as a parent, I appreciate and value them as an educator of my child.
Yeah, one of the things that we did this year at our school is, with the support of our school board, was to expand the health benefits, dental benefits, vision benefits for our teachers who are certified to teach, so that it is automatic, it is free health insurance for them. That is a huge benefit, that comes out of, you're already not paid enough anyway. And so with health insurance costs rising and it's coming out of your check, and so we were able to fund that for every licensed teacher in our school, that your health insurance is now free, vision, dental, for you and your family. So that's the level of support that I seek to provide. The other thing that we started last year, was with our teacher assistants, because they are educators as well. And we relied heavily on them during that heightened year of COVID. And we were one of the first and the few schools in the area to increase the teacher assistant salary to over $30,000, and to give them a better livable wage. It's not exactly where it should be, but it continues to grow each year, and they have opportunities to do that. And teacher assistants don't necessarily have to have a bachelor's degree, but they do so much, in the school. And so we were able to do that as well. So all of our actually everybody in our school, whether it's cafeteria, whether it is custodial, taking them above the livable wage, so that they can support their families as well. So the free health insurance, health benefits is one of the ways. If you're teaching, if you're licensed, we appreciate that, and we don't want you to have to stress about health insurance and taking care of yourself or your family, because you take care of the children of other families during the day.
So this is my second year in this role, and it's a little bit different for me. Like I said, I do have 12 schools. I hang out at schools a lot. I do a lot of classroom visits. I get feedback. Sometimes I actually take on a few mentees every year, depending on their what I've seen and what I think they could use to help them along a little bit further in their careers. Some of them express interest in certain activities or leadership roles they'd like to take on, and I feel like it's my responsibility to groom more leaders. Even if you're a leader in the classroom, however you see yourself leading, I think it's my responsibility to make sure you have those resources. I do a lot of principal coaching. That's really the main part of my job. I support them in supporting teachers. As a parent, I have been crafting for almost 3 weeks. So whoever my daughter gets, they already know who they are. But they're going to have some nice stuff on the first day of school. I know who my child is. My child is a beautiful, very talkative little girl. And I also know that, I need to probably add some nice things to the basket, just because she has a lot of energy. I hope she's not watching. But I like to do things for teachers and make them feel special. Even the coaches that are in the buildings, I have a really close bond with a lot of my coaches. I do a lot of mentoring for the assistant principals because they want to be principals. And I want to make sure when they step into that role, they're ready for the role and they're not learning the role when they get there, because I feel like that's the whole purpose of being an assistant principal, is to learn that role then. So that's how I really support. I just love working with, especially women, helping them see their purpose and the mission in education, education is not just a job, it's a ministry. And so when you see your job as a ministry, you will approach it differently and how you do your job and your work ethic, and that's how I like to see it. So if I'm pouring into someone else, they will pour into others. And that's the ripple effect that I would love to have as my legacy.
Whoop, whoop. Yes, I love it. Y'all, the questions are pouring in, and time is going to get away from us. All right, ladies, if you're enjoying it, please put some fire in the chat because y'all are really talking in the chat, so we appreciate that. Question from one of our beautiful mothers. Hey, Mother Faye. She said, given the shortage of teachers, how do parents advocate for children with special educational needs? Educational plans have time frames. At what point should you request a review of that individualized plan if the school does not? And I'm looking at Ms. Williams.
Yeah. So if you're talking about individualized education plans, what we call IEPs, they're required to be addressed yearly. So the school has to, at least one time a year, address and look at progress of the student on the IEP goals. That's a requirement. They have to. So if that is not occurring, you need to speak with your child's teacher, the principal, the admin at the school to get that rolling. Also, you can also call a IEP meeting at any given time. You're required to address it once a year, but you can call an IEP meeting at any time during that school year. So if you have concerns about your child's progress on their IEP goals or special education services, I would encourage you to reach out to that special educator who is providing those services for that child and ask, can we have a meeting? I have concerns. What can we do to meet and talk about my concerns?
And you all can inbox them as well with these specific questions. There was another question that came up that said, what advice do you have for parents who are planning to homeschool?
Get a curriculum. If it's your first year, you need a curriculum to guide you. Because lesson planning is hard, y'all. It's hard, and even if you're doing it just for your little, it's a lot of work. So there are many curriculums out there that are free, open. They're called open resources. Guilford County School uses open resources. There are homeschool curriculums that you could actually purchase. You just have to sort of kind of join those homeschool groups. There's a lot of them on Facebook. You can Google homeschool groups. There's little pods or communities in the Greensboro area, and those moms get together, and some of them actually share the responsibility of teaching each other's children so that the other mom has enough time to do more of whatever they're interested in doing, whether it's running a business or going to work or whatever the case may be. But get yourself a curriculum because you don't want to try to do it from scratch your first time around. You can always learn from what you found in the curriculum, add and take away. There's beautiful curriculums out there. There's Christian-based curriculums. There's literature-based curriculums. There's so many things out there, but I would definitely say do your research. There's a couple of women that are on YouTube who actually discuss the different types of homeschool programs. So I would say just do a little bit of research and see what's out there and what's in your budget too, because they get expensive.
I would add to create a schedule that works for your home. I mean, I know a lot of us work from home during COVID, and you at the house, you get distracted, and you may not finish what you're supposed to do. But I actually talked to a student who was homeschooled, and I asked her, and so how long do you do your schoolwork? And she said, like I start around 9 and finish around 5 o'clock. And in my mind, I'm like, that's way too long to be doing schoolwork all day. So make sure you get a schedule that allows some breaks and some time to get some movement in or whatever, just to make sure, because kids thrive in structure. So even though they're home, they still need some structure to make sure they're successful with doing that work.
Thank you, ladies. And so this is our lightning round. We're going to lighten the load on the questions. And I'm just going to go down the line and just pick anyone by random. I'm just going to do just random. Tasha, work vacation or work free holiday?
Say it again.
Work vacation or work free holiday?
Work free holiday.
Dr. Draper, Arctic or tropical?
Tropical.
Kendra, video games or books?
I'm gonna say books.
Dr. Johnson, paperback book or hardcover book?
Paperback. It's not as heavy in my purse.
Tasha, TV series or movies?
TV series.
Dr. Johnson, takeout or dine in?
Dine in.
Dr. Draper, tulips or sunflowers?
Tulips.
Kendra, broccoli or squash?
Neither. No. Squash. I'll go with squash.
Dr. Draper, ability to travel without a passport or ability to read minds?
Travel.
Tasha, avocado toast or avocado smoothie?
Avocado toast. I think my mouth
Dr. Draper, nope. Dr. Johnson, live in LA or New York?
LA.
Really?
Yes, warm weather.
True that. Kendra, chicken nuggets or chicken fingers?
Oh, chicken fingers. Yeah.
All right. Dr. Draper, carpet or wooden floors?
Wooden floors.
Tasha, live in London or English countryside?
live in London.
Dr. Johnson, tent or camping van?
Camping van. Yes.
Dr. Draper, workout at home or workout at the gym?
Workout at not at all. A gym.
All right. Tasha, soda or milkshake?
Milkshake.
Y'all know what song just came in my head, but we're not gonna go there. Okay, Kendra, desktop or laptop?
Laptop.
Dr. Johnson, Connect Four or tic-tac-toe?
Spades.
Hit that table. Come on now. Come on now. And last one, Dr. Draper. Well, last one for each of you. Dr. Draper, Taiwan or Singapore?
Singapore.
Okay. Dr. Johnson, foresee the future or change the past?
That's a good one.
Neither. Neither. I can't choose. I know, yeah.
I know that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Tasha, snowball fight or water balloon fight?
Water balloon fight.
Kendra, stop using paper or stop using plastic?
Stop using plastic.
All right, give yourselves a round of applause. And so, ladies, we want to thank you all so much for joining us on this evening. Thank you to our beautiful panelists. We are humble and grateful that you all allow us to pick your brains and hear your heart on this evening. We are honored to share the space with you all. Ladies, you know what we do after class. The Cash App should be in the comment section. We give, and it shall be given unto you. Press down, shake it together, run it over. You all know the scripture. So don't forget, next week starts, it's our anniversary. Yes, it's our anniversary coming up. So again, let's give our wonderful panelists a round of applause. Woo woo, drop some fire in the chat. Put your hands up in the air like you just don't care. We are excited and we are honored that you all took this time to spend with us. Again, you can follow them on social media. Each and every one of these ladies do have a Facebook. Befriend them. Find them on the Sister Circle. Send them a message if there's something that we did not address on this evening, but you have this burning question. We want to make sure that we meet your needs. So please, again, follow them, Twitter, Instagram. I don't have TikTok if they have TikTok. Yeah, so just find them on Facebook for right now, okay? We love you all. Thank you again for joining us on this evening, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. It's Saturday, y'all, 8:30, not 6:30, 8:30 a.m. See you tomorrow. Love y'all.